The Saints wrap up the first week or half week, I guess, of 2025 training camp. We're going to talk about the process in training camp. Free agent coming in for a visit. Safety gets a high honor from PFF, and we'll go over the practice report from today's day number 3 practice. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. So after training camp day 1, Alvin Kamara spoke with the media, and he was asked a couple questions about Kellen Moore. And the second one that kind of stood out to me uh, is describe Kellen Moore's personality, and he goes into a little bit here that I think is very important because when I was watching day 2, yesterday's press conference, when Kellen Moore was talking to the media, and this was actually on the second and third watch, I started picking up on some stuff that Moore was talking about, and a great shout out to the New Orleans media because they were asking questions and they're kind of scattered in a couple different places with follow-ups. They kind of fit into what Alvin's going to talk about right here.
Like somebody says, "What's
I'm figuring them out still. I'm figuring them out. I think he cool though. He cool for right now. If he do something messed up, I'll let y'all know. But nah, he cool, man. I think he's excited. I think he got good energy. Like I said earlier, I think he has a rhyme and a reason to why he does things. He knows what he wants. And I think that's one of the biggest things, I think, in being a player and a coach, like just having the confidence to say something, do something, and then stand on it, like have a reason why, like whether it goes wrong or right. Like, well, I did this because, and then be able to stick with that. So I kind of get that vibe from him. So we'll see. I got to see. I got to see what his other vibes is like.
Biggest takeaway, and I think it's a huge one, is when he's talking about, and he's it's typical Alvin. Alvin likes to have fun with the media and, kind of, I don't necessarily poking a little fun at anybody, but just kind of joking around with more, yeah, I'm trying to figure him out. But he said, look, he's got a rhyme and a reason to everything he does. He's basically saying he has a process. And he's saying that, you know, almost own it when things aren't working out. That the last part of that was, and I kind of factor that into accountability because a true process of what we were trying to accomplish the last couple of seasons, frankly, and this was organization failure wide from the top to the bottom and everybody in between, was there's no real process. There was definitely no accountability for anything. Kellen Moore often talks about how the NFL is all about adjustments, constantly adjusting. And he also talks about how it's all about overcoming adversity. And he spoke quite a bit about that when he was talking about the quarterback competition yesterday. So I think there's an acknowledgement here from Alvin, and it's important it's coming from Alvin because Alvin Kamara and Eric McCoy, they're the use air quotes here, the two old guys on this offense. They're going to be the primary team leaders. We always talk about some buy-in. It's like need to have that buy-in. And I always had the feeling when we were looking at, especially now, looking back through the lens of 24, 23, 22, that even at the end of the prior coaching staff's phase, it's like you saw a lot of the decline in how we were doing things, how we were holding ourselves accountable. It is just quite refreshing to see Alvin, and it wasn't like it was a planned statement. I mean, he was just kind of joking around with the media when they were asking him his impressions, what he thought of Kellen Moore. And he's saying, yeah, I've been keeping my eye on him. I've been observing. We hadn't interacted too much yet in practice, but, and these are the things I'm noticing. And we got the feeling, or at least I got the feeling starting, phase 2, that OTAs, the minicamp, that there was like a different vibe coming in. And I want to keep feeling that because I think the vibe is coming in is that very thing that we have been missing season after season, literally. And sometimes I banged on the roster and the ability of these players. And there is some of that in there, I think, but it may not be as much as it is, or as I think it is. if in fact we do have a process, an attention to detail type coach where everything matters, and acknowledgement, accountability, acknowledging, hey, sometimes things won't work. We've got to fix it. We've got to change it. We have to adjust. And that's some things we just haven't seen a whole lot of probably since 2020, 2021, to be honest with you. And to me, that coincides with the overall decline that the organization was having. And part of the accountability was gaslighting the fans and fooling themselves into thinking, no, roll it back, man. We're good. We're right where we need to be. I think large part the players knew for sure, especially the veteran ones who had been here in the 20 teens when we were one of the first class organizations in the NFL. And you stop and think about it, that wasn't that long ago. So I want to keep seeing these players' impressions when they're talking. And then when we roll out August 10th, I believe it is, against San Diego, and I know it's a San Diego Chargers. One of these days I'll remember they're in LA. But I think see it then, even though it's preseason, want to see what he's talking about, an actual process. When things don't go wrong or don't go right and they go wrong, I want to see accountability, and I damn sure want to see adjustments. And it won't mean as much in preseason, just like it won't mean as much in a training camp practice. I get it. But sometimes I felt like the last couple of years that those issues were popping up and we were just not dealing with them. We were ignoring them. And it's got to stop. So tie in what we were just talking about with Alvin, process and accountability. And like I said, there were some questions. They're kind of spread out. We'll jump around the press conference just a little bit, trying to get to it. But there's some stuff there that I think ties in and gives me. I've had some very positive feelings about Kellen Moore and the way things are going so far. I needed a little bit reinforcement every now and then. And I think he, at various times in that press conference yesterday, he gave it to us.
Time just trying to be as detailed as we possibly can, get the drills, be really clean, operate at a really high level, because again, we got to maximize every chance we get out here and put these guys in a really good position to be successful, so that tomorrow will be our third day in a row, which is kind of the longest length we'll go in a row, which will be our third day. So it'll be the first time they'll do that. They'll have to push through it. It'll be a really good test for them, and we'll just continue to build as we go.
Is that something you've developed over time? Was there like an influence on that, or is it
no? I think certainly a lot of places that you've been, you're always leaning on those experiences, and I feel like there's times where practice is going to be really long, and we got to go through that process and be really, push them through a really long practice, which will come in pads. But right now, we're trying to be really efficient and get these guys moving.
So it was back-to-back questions, really talking about the efficiency of time and how, Nick Underhill asked him specifically, he's come up with this, and and I think we all kind of know the answer, but I think it's relevant, the fact that, yeah, he's been in some places, Dallas, and particularly last year in Philly for Super Bowl champ, where been some fairly successful teams that, yeah, you pick up on stuff like the efficiency of time, like how it's going to work, how you need it to work, taking a little bit here, a little bit there. That all comes with the experience in the NFL. And he's a young guy, of course, son of a coach, former player as a quarterback. So unique style of experience to pull from. I think it's all important. And I think Mickey Loomis talked about how he's a collaborator and seeks opinions, seeks advice. And he admitted to that too in a the press conference a couple of days ago. But he recognizes ultimately that, yeah, I'm drawing from experience, but this is all on me. And he goes into it a little bit later about how, yeah, he's got to see the whole big picture. That's on him because that's his job.
On day two that you like? Yeah, just to bring the distance down a little bit. Yesterday was their first day going, which was a go get it, and they opened up and they had to run, and now we kind of tighten the space just to limit some of those long distances. Sometimes there's some sports science associated with that, just as far as protecting these guys.
So the very next question was asking about day one, and they're about ready to go into some quarterback competition stuff here. But, day one, a lot of long throws going on, stuff like that, as far as working down the field and a lot of running involved. And yesterday was more red zone concentrated. And he brought up the fact, sports science, Ted Rath, how important it is that there's a process and a plan, how they want to do this. Red zone compacts it. So we're not asking them to run as much as we asked them to run yesterday. However, it's still an important part of the game. There's a lot of work to get done in here. So it's not, we still want 100% effort on everything we do. We want to do it safely. And so if we're going to have a long day of running, we're going to have I hate to say a shorter day of less work, because it's not really less work. It's a different type of work. It's equally as important as throwing the ball down the field as throwing it into the end zone and catching it. But I think what the larger scope is trying to figure this out, maximize the time, be efficient, get as much work at 100% high level as we can, while doing our very best to keep the players as healthy and fresh as possible, because it's one hellaciously long season and we do not need a repeat of the crap that went on last year.
Have notes now, for instance, for Tyler later about what you saw just now? Do you have notes now, or will you watch the tape first and then, or do you try not to bombard them with too many notes at this point?
Post practice is just get these guys ready to go. We will have afternoon meetings the way our schedule goes. We got practice in the morning. We'll watch the film right after this. We'll then transition into a practice review session for special teams, offense, defense. We'll come out here and do a walkthrough in the afternoons, which is really good work because we get corrections and then we get some of the additional stuff that we may not have gotten through practice. And so we do that routine, and then in the evenings is our install. So we kind of get into this flow. This is our second day of it now, so we're starting to find our rhythm.
Do you know a lot of the things?
Just broke down the whole day, the way it's going to work. Makes it sound like because he said our second day we're getting in the rhythm. This is how it's going to roll from here on out. So pretty much walking down the line of cause and effect of how we're going to notice stuff, and they'll take notes on it during practice. And he says later on in another question that we won't go through, basically reiterating, I tend to take a lot of notes in practice. But we're going to watch the film first. In addition, we're going to collaborate, figure out everything that needs to be figured out, have meetings with the players, do a walkthrough, get some install in. And this process is going to keep continuing all day long of getting work done physically, which big component of training camp, but still a lot of that phase 2 stuff we're talking about. He used to call it the classroom stuff, hammering that stuff in, but also with the notes, watching the film, having the meetings is bringing some accountability in, because he talks about, and he talks about again a little later, about getting corrections done. And they claimed over the last few seasons they were getting corrections done and we're going to get it fixed and all. And maybe they tried. I don't know. I wasn't in the room, but there was never any results shown. And they never, as far as I know, broke it down like he just broke it down. It's like, this is how the day operates. And going back to what Alvin was talking about, he has a reason for everything he does, right or wrong. And if this doesn't work, pretty sure he's going to start making adjustments, holding himself accountable, and go, well, let's go fix this. I hope so, because again, that's what this team has needed for the longest time.
Operation errors, does it cut into reps at all? Like, do you have to redo the same play 2 times or 3 times? Like, does it cut into?
Yeah, there's consequences with it. I think if you make a mistake on the
I don't know if I've ever heard any of our previous staff actually say the word consequences.
field pre-snap, we just switch that guy out. There's consequences related to that. You're not playing the next play, and then we'll get him back in eventually. Anything post-snap, we move on to the next play. We obviously missed that opportunity.
Look, I don't know exactly what consequences mean there, but the simple fact that he's acknowledging, now they were talking specifically about pre-snap stuff, very correctable, something happens, get him out. And his phrase, and we'll work them back in there eventually, kind of leaves it open-ended of, it's not like a, hey, sit out one play and run a lap type thing or whatever that, I used to do way back when in high school when we messed up. But possibly sending the message, hopefully so. When we say jobs are open, we mean jobs are open, because you keep screwing up pre-snap and costing us penalty yards. Well, we're going to have to find somebody who doesn't do that. Yeah. No jobs are safe. I'm getting more and more in that impression that there's going to be a handful of players, and we know who they are, who's 100% job guaranteed. They're our best players. They should be. And even then, that should not absolve them from creating mental errors like pre-snap penalties that cost the team. That was something rampant the last few seasons that we were like, is this ever going to get fixed? At least he's trying. He's trying something. He has a process. Hopefully it works. But if not, like I said, he is big on making adjustments. That's what the NFL is all about. So he'll have to adjust his consequences, I guess. But either way, at, at least there's an active effort, to the best of my knowledge, that's ever been acknowledged by anybody on the Saints staff of going, we need to fix that crap.
And in terms of individual time management, I know every year is going to be different. Ideally, like as a head coach, you'd have this 30,000 foot view, right? You'd be the CEO. But having been a quarterback, and with the quarterback situation here being so front and center, do you think you're going to end up spending more time in your first year as a coach analyzing that position and thinking about it?
Potentially a little bit, just as we go through it. Again, you're responsible for all aspects of this thing, and so that's the fun part of this. Connect with all those guys, but we'll let this thing play itself out.
So that was the last one. His acknowledgement of, yeah, it's be fun. I want to interact with the players. Kind of the jobs he's had previously in the NFL, because he's never been a head coach before. The position coach, the coordinator. And I think this first year he's kind of alluding to, he's not going to give all that up because and he shouldn't. He needs to be heavily involved with what's going on with the quarterback. So he will have to dip in there, but also acknowledging that, the 30,000 foot view, that I'm responsible for everything. I've got to keep an eye on everything. I've got to make sure everything is working. I have to be accountable for everything going on this football team, every phase of it, every position group, every coach, every player, the whole shebang is mine. Just an acknowledgement of that verbally. Again, something I did not hear a whole lot of the last few years. So yeah, it's my job. That's what I have to do. So I may be a little more concerned with the quarterback stuff this year, implied that going, hopefully we find our guy in Rattler or um, Shuck, and then next year we're dealing with the other stuff. But saying, yeah, that's something I got to keep my eye on. That's my bailiwick. That's what I made my bones at in the NFL, working with quarterbacks. Well, now it's got to kind of work with everybody because I have to see the whole entire process. And the acknowledgement, it starts the day he takes the job and it doesn't end until the day he's no longer in this job. And the bright young mind, he fully grasped that concept and is fully embracing it. And I think that's massively important if we're going to try to get this to work out with him. Two players to note, I think we need to talk about, one possibly incoming and one already on the roster. The first is free agent tight end Noah Fant, just released by Seattle earlier in the week. It's coming in for a visit today. He is a former first round pick by Denver, number 20 overall in 2019. Now, this tells you a lot. He only stayed in Denver 3 years, 2019 to 2021 and 22 to till just last week in Seattle. His career numbers, it's 301 receptions on 405 targets for 3,316 yards. He's averaging 11 yards a catch, 15 total touchdowns in 6 years. Now, when you look at, he's just an interesting guy to talk about because you look at break down his snaps over that time. He had 2,298 pass snaps, 1,053 blocking snaps. So majority of in pass, but his high number of blocking snaps, put a pin in that, we'll come back to it. His career is solid receiver. He has a very low drop rate. So, and PFF considers drop rate as any ball that's on target. He's dropped 11 on target balls in his 6 year career. That's less than 2 a year. Hell, we've had receivers the last couple of years that average 2 a quarter, it seems like. And fairly athletic, for a big man. 5.7 career yards after catch, not all that bad. About half a first down every time you get him the ball. Additionally, so almost 6 yards. So not too bad. His lineup as where they lined him up over, and this is over his career, both places he's been. He's been an inline tight end most of the time, 54% roughly, about 32%, almost 33% in the slot, a little over 10%, almost 11% wide, and right around 2% other, which probably means in the backfield. Don't know if he took any snaps at quarter, but that'd be the only other option in that 2%. The issue, though, with him, he's not much of a blocker. And in his NFL career, he's lined up in line an awful lot where you're expected to do some blocking up there. Um, just put it to you this way: the highest grade that PFF ever had on him was in 2023 at 59.6%. That is barely passing by PFF standards. Now, I always caution take PFF with a grain of salt. I like it because it's a good baseline starting point when you're trying to compare players. But I'm also of the opinion it is one analytical tool amongst many, so it doesn't tell a true picture. But when you look at something like consistently, what they're saying is, let's round it up to 60%. Basically, 40% of the tight ends are better in the league, are better blockers than he is. What that means exactly with him coming in, I don't know. But almost every free agent available list you look at, Fant's number one on it as the top guy. We're bringing him a look because, like we mentioned the other day, two of our tight ends are starting on pup. One of them, they're making it sound like he's going to be back at some point this season. The other, in Hill and Moreau, sounds like sooner than later. But they're definitely on. It doesn't surprise me that they're taking a look at the tight end free agents market. The other player, and this was some good news, having my morning coffee this morning, PFF again, had an article where they were ranking all the defensive backs or our safeties in the league under various coverages. And we had one hit the list at number one in Justin Reid, who we just signed from Kansas City, because they have him rated as number one, the highest safety in deep zone coverage. Now, specifically what they're talking about there in deep zone, and you break it down just generally sideline to sideline cover one, where that poor sucker's got everything going on back there. Basically, he's covered hash to hash and cover three because in the middle of the field, hash to sideline and cover two. So he's got half the field one way or the other. I'm sorry, middle of the field to sideline, one way or the other, and cover two. And then in cover four, he's basically on the hash because he's got one of the inside quarters in deep zone coverage. What it basically means by comparison to say like a cornerback, they run when you're safety deep zone, it's a thankless position sometimes because basically you get less one-on-one opportunities than say a corner who typically in zone, even when they're matching up or just stay in straight zone coverage, they're on the outside, they're going to get a lot more one-on-ones. Whereas safeties tend to have to worry about multiple receivers. And you cover multiple guys, but you can find yourself in a matchup position when the ball is in the air. And hopefully, if you're a safe position, you're matching up on the correct receiver and not leaving somebody open who ends up getting the ball. Not an easy task. They had him graded out as the best at it. And they point out that they ended the little paragraph on him. They pointed out that one of the reasons why the Chiefs defense was so consistently good the last 3 years was the fact that he came over from Houston and kind of anchored that back in when they wanted to do a lot of this deep zone coverage, which is very important for the Saints because, we've talked about it. That's more than likely the way Brandon Staley is going to go. That's the way he's done it in the past. That's the way successful NFL defenses are doing it nowadays, giving up. I don't want to say giving up totally, but lowering the percentage of straight man that they're going to be playing. So that guy back there who single high or zero when he's going to end up covering somebody to Now you've got multiple spots on the field, multiple coverages, and a cover one zone, cover two zone, three, four, different responsibilities, but in almost in every case, multiple receivers you got to deal with. Not easy thing to do by any stretch. And according to PFF, again, grain of salt, but a good barometer baseline for where safeties rank. Um, he's number one, and particularly in deep zone coverage, which is a great thing to hear, especially thinking we just lost Honey Badger and even add Julian Blackman, who right now, for the first couple of days of practice, Jordan Howden was running with the ones. You got a lot of stuff going on. You got one guy, seems to be pretty good at it, veteran guy. And quite frankly, Chiefs defense and what we expect Brandon Staley to run may not be apples to apples, definitely isn't apple to oranges. It's going to be close in concepts, maybe a little different in scheme. I think more and more on paper, adding Reid in free agency has become a really big move, a great move for the Saints. Getting into the practice report, I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot to report, simply for the fact that they kind of wound things down. Today, some veterans got some days off, veteran days off. I think the biggest thing to take away from is kind of from the quarterback room. Hayner got his chance to run with the ones. Rattler ran with the twos, Shuck with the threes. I think the thing to really note there is when Hayner and Shuck were getting their turns, Rattler was with the twos both days. Read into that what you will, but it kind of, to me, is reinforcing my thought that Rattler's the leader in the clubhouse right now on this quarterback competition. One of the other guys is really going to have to take it away from him. The players who I saw both days, light work days, don't really know where it fell, but it was mentioned specifically Alvin Kamara, Eric McCoy, and Brandon Cooks on offense, which allowed Will Clapp to work full time with the ones. Mason Tipton got a little run in the offense today, and he caught a long pass from Rattler running with the twos. The biggest takeaway, it sounds like, is this the first day the offense kind of had the upper hand, especially the quarterbacks playing better than they did the first 2 days. Safety Justin Reid commented to the media, today was the best day the quarterbacks had. We beat up on them a little bit the first 2 days. And some of the people that were in attendance the last couple of days, that's kind of what it sounded like. Now, defensively, they also had some players light work day or rest day, or Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, and Devon Godshaw. So some of the young defenders got to rotate through. I think the biggest reason why this is going on is they're off Saturday. They practice Sunday again without pads. Monday's the first day of pads. When it gets real, we'll get full contact, get physical. Kind of interested to see what's going to happen after that practice. The last thing is the injury report. Hill and Moreau still unavailable because they're on the PUP list, but they're in attendance and they're participating as much as they can as far as like the classroom portion. And they have been spotted on the field, even though they aren't doing anything physical. They're involved, which is great. Team leaders and everything that they can do to help them not only get back faster, but be ready quicker when they do. Good for us. And I think Moreau, as we mentioned, probably going to be back sooner than later. No report on Hills, and no report on anybody leaving practice early because of a physical issue. Let's just say it that way. Third day in a row, because I don't want to jinx a thing. So that's what we got for you today. Um, do want to mention I've been having some audiovisual technicalities every now and again where you get a little blip on the screen. Trying to fix most of that, and I can clean some of it up before it uploads the video, but some are still getting through. My apologies. Thank you for sticking through that with me. Like I said, Monday is going to be it's going to be real first time in pads. Looking forward to see what that's going to look like, and in hearing what it's going to look like after the after practice is over when they get to talk to the media. So first time here, you like what you saw, please give me a thumbs up. In fact, everybody could please give me a thumbs up. Helps out tremendously, but go ahead. Subscribe also. That helps out tremendously. Drop them down in the comments. Let me know how the first 3 days went so far. What do you think? Um, it's a limited bit of information, I agree, but there's some stuff out there. And And especially when you hear him talk, I know it's only talk, but at least it gives us something positive to go on. And again, I think Monday is going to be the first real big day. So till I see you next time, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.